Hey everyone, this is Matt Van Horn with 3 Mile Domination. Today we're going to do our third podcast in identifying and stopping embezzlement on a self-storage property. The first podcast we discussed doing a physical inventory of your property, going into the office, printing a rent roll or a walkthrough report, then going outside and checking each individual unit, making sure that if it's a customer unit, that it has a customer lock on it. If it's a facility unit, whether it's vacant or inventory, that it has some sort of facility lock on there, like a red, green, blue, or yellow lock. And then checking your units that are ready for lien sale or auction. If you did cut the lock, does it have a seal on it? Does that number of the seal match the original seal that was put on when the lock was cut? Does it have a facility lock on there, which it should be a red lock, something like that? And then going around and making sure that there aren't any variances and make sure that there isn't a unit that's supposed to be vacant that has a customer lock on it, or vice versa. And then if there are any variances, go into the office, check leases, and find out why that variance exists. And then in the second podcast, we discussed going in there and checking the cash on the property, going in there, counting your cash till, making sure that whatever that number is, the balances and there's no variances, counting your petty cash fund, making sure that the cash plus the receipts equal the total fund. And then finally making sure you're checking your deposits on a regular basis, making sure the money that is coming in, that the computer says is coming in off your deposit report, is the exact amount that is going to the bank. Now today we want to talk about a couple of things that may not be, in terms of embezzlement, may not be the first thing anyone thinks of to do, but they are still things that we need to consider. So for example, we'll start with waiving fees and credits. This is one of these areas that you really need to be careful of, because a lot of times when you have embezzlement on a property, that really starts because people aren't watching, they're not checking what's going on, and then the person doing the embezzlement gets more bold and more bold, and because no one's watching. So apathy and not checking on things will really cause these things to fester, cause embezzlement to fester on your property. So what you want to do is you want to go in and check all of the fees that have been waived, all of the rent payments or fees or whatever else that have also been credited, and make sure that that number isn't completely off the mark. And if it is, start making phone calls. Contact those customers and find out if when they were there the fee was waived or it was credited in some way and they didn't pay it. Because a lot of times what will happen is that a manager could potentially waive a fee or credit a fee and then all of a sudden pocket that extra money. So let's say there's $110 due on the account, $100 is rent, $10 is fees. The manager comes in, they collect $110 right off the $10 fee and pocket the $10. So that's one way. Again, we want to be vigilant in watching how much of our potential revenue is being waived or credited to an account. The next thing would be to check your auction inventory. If you're using, typically when we do auctions, a lot of times there is cash that are involved in these transactions, and some of these transactions can be hundreds and hundreds of dollars, some are even thousands of dollars. So we want to make sure that the money that's actually being bid is actually being collected, put it in the computer, and deposited. Now, there's two ways you could do this. You could hire an auctioneer, which is one thing I highly suggest, because then you have a sort of checks and balances system at your property that allows you to let one person write down what the collection was on some sort of receipt, which would be the auctioneer, and then hand that over to the facility manager, who can then process it on the computer side and make sure that deposit gets in there. So then now you have a checks and balances system. You can always go back and check on the receipt that was given you to the auctioneer to make sure that amount, there are no variances in the amounts, and it balances and it's all gone to the bank. The second way would be to have someone else come in, whether it be someone else in the company, in your operations department, accounting department, whatever, come in there and help supervise the auctions so they can verify all of the funds that are coming in. I like these types of checks and balances system because if you only have one person collecting and one person processing and putting away, you may never get it. You could possibly not get an accurate result, or if somebody is embezzling, they will change those numbers and you really have nothing to go back on and look. And then the final way is to do an inventory count in your office. A number of you have large inventory areas. If you have a brand new facility, you've probably built a section specifically for self-storage inventory where you're selling locks, boxes, and any other number of items from the self-storage companies that supply us with our inventory. So what you want to do is go in there, just pull an inventory report and start counting. No different than when you see somebody in Walmart or something doing inventory and they're counting everything. You want to go in there and count the same thing. So go in there and check and make sure that the numbers of locks that you have, the number of boxes you have, everything that you have matches the number in the computer, and also check, again, your sales slips when they come in. So when inventory is dropped off, you're checking those slips and making sure the amount of inventory that's been dropped off is put into the computer and put into the shelves or in the storage where it's keeping, and then just check those numbers. Make sure someone's not selling inventory out from under you and you're not counting. So those 3 quick things there in regards to checking your checking the fees that have been waived and the credits that have been applied, checking your auction amounts and the amounts coming in from your auction, and then also checking your inventory will help you stop any embezzlement, and it will keep people who do watch you when you do your site visits, keep them on their toes and know that everything is being watched, along with the other two podcasts that we discussed, doing a physical on the property and then checking all of your cash. So these 3 podcasts, listen to them. These are a few quick ways you can try to deter embezzlement on your property. Again, when people know there's people watching, these things tend not to happen. What they do is when people aren't watching, they tend to start small and they go bigger and bigger and bigger, and then all of a sudden you've realized you've lost thousands and thousands of dollars in revenue because it was embezzled, and that's a terrible, terrible feeling. So again, if you have any questions in regards to audits on your property, feel free to email us at info@3miledomination.com or visit our website at www.3miledomination.com. Everyone have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching. We'd love to give away free books that will help your self-storage business. To pick up your free copy of Self-Storage Domination, the actions you must take to dominate your competition, simply go to selfstoragedomination.com.